Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Sean Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. We started this show back in 2017 with the goal of connecting restaurateurs, technology professionals, storytellers from all over the earth. And it's really exciting for me because I get to talk to people that are building really cool things that are making a huge impact on this industry. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing Joe Gallagher, who is the co-founder and head of product of 86 Repairs. If you don't know about 86 Repairs, check out Daniel's episode of Digital Hospitality. But this is cool for me because I get double founder story. And I think one of the premise of this show is to make sure that multiple voices in our industry get heard. Some people that build really cool things definitely do not build them by themselves. There's typically a team of people, but very few are willing to share that team. So I'm very excited to bring Joe's voice on, welcome into our community, but more importantly, learn from him. So Joe, welcome to the show.
Sean, it's great to be here. Thanks for the very generous intro.
So I would love always to start with the aha. I want to give us a little bit of context of what were you doing when you came up with this 86 Repairs, when you truly found this aha moment of there's a big product, there's a big gap in what's happening.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of a story that unfolded over probably 15, 20 years of my career.
Wow.
I was trained classically as a mechanical engineer and really started my career designing food equipment, bread slicers, bagel slicers, even ovens from that standpoint. And kind of fast forwarding a little bit in my career, I then ended up in Home Depot corporate, focused on sales, furnish, and installation product management. So this is about getting your new water heater put in or your new dishwasher put in. So there was always a services component to it. And then became the general manager of a original equipment manufacturer in my second tour of duty through food equipment land. And what started to show up at each point in my career journey, whether I was at a small privately held company or a Fortune 50 publicly traded big box home improvement retailer, I saw that at no level of economic scale that anybody had solved the repair and maintenance problem. It was still hard to get trade skills out to a house on time with the right tools, with the right resources, all the logistics that go into getting that service repair done or that installation service done. Home Depot had near infinite money to spend on the problem, couldn't solve for it. It was still a problem where almost 30% of the time there was some sort of issue with what we call the first time fix rate in the industry. Wow. And that just kind of became an itch that I just had to keep scratching to kind of figure out what was going on there. And that kind of gave us the confidence, the first step of confidence, to start researching into 86 Repairs. I can go into the aha of how 86 Repairs and what it solves for kind of more specifically, but that's kind of how I got interested in the topic and said, there's a really stubborn problem here to solve with software and great service.
Let's go deeper. Tell us about the 86 Repairs.
Yeah, so Daniel Estrada and I, my business partner and longtime friend, we grew up on the same street in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's probably going to regret me saying that out loud. Good. But we grew up on the same street in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we actually had started a web consulting and software business, software business back in the 2006 zone. And we always had a gentleman's agreement that at one point, whenever we start our next business, we would try to do that together. And so I had that confidence that I said, hey, Daniel, there's really this issue in the industry. Take my word for it. You don't come from the industry, but take my word for it. There's really something here. And he was, as I appreciate from my good friend, healthy skeptical and said, well, let's take a step. Let's do some research on it. And we sat down with 43 service providers, vendors, trade skill individuals. We sat down in that 43 with restaurant operators across the Midwest. And I really just rolled napkins in the back booth with those operators and just asked them probing questions about repair and maintenance. And the aha moment for me was somewhere around the 20th, 30th interview and all the way through the 43 interviews. 90% of the people I sat down with signed up for a service that didn't yet exist. They made a verbal commitment on that day that if I was able to provide service repair management for their restaurant locations that took the staff distraction of getting the ice machine fixed off their plate, that they would pay a non-zero amount of money per month per location to do that. And to get that research question answered that way, and then to have the follow-up where I actually then called their bluff and sent them a contract to sign for a month-to-month contract that we would handle their management, they signed it. And that's really kind of the entrepreneur gold standard, is when you can get, in my opinion, when you can get somebody to quote unquote use real hard-earned money, and you know how hard it is in the restaurant industry to make money. If they're willing to spend their hard-earned money on something that's speculative and not yet figured out, and we were clear about those expectations up front, but to have them stick their neck out on an idea that would solve a high pain point item, that's what really got us bullish about this. There's something real here and there's something to do.
How did you learn and iterate which questions to ask as you were rolling silverware? You said probing questions, and as somebody that I interview for most of this is the show. We are in the show business, so I love the craft of interviewing, the craft of questions. The best ideas come from even better questions. How did you iterate on the questions you were asking?
Yeah, it comes from it's a personal story. It comes from a place where I was at Home Depot corporate, and I was in Atlanta, Georgia, where they're headquartered. And at the time, no longer a little company, they're literally owned by Intuit now, very large organization. But at the time, the darling in the entrepreneur scene was MailChimp in Atlanta, Georgia. And I just knew that I would get into entrepreneurship. I would get back into starting my own venture-backed business at some point. And so I stayed really close to the ecosystem in Atlanta and really got some of my additional refinement in my approach there. And Ben Chestnut and another individual at MailChimp really had their pulse on customer-driven, product-led growth. And there was this little book in one of the blog posts that I highly recommend to anybody called Just Enough Research. It's this 120 page, really scrappy book. And it's going to tell you the basics that anybody that does observational research, it's nothing new, but it was so plainly laid out and so simple. And it came from a source of trust. And this was the approach that they were taking, was ask open-ended questions, ask broad questions across the whole set of topics. And then the greatest piece that I got from them, there's a bunch of other pieces, but the greatest piece I got from them is stop doing the research, not when you hit n equals 32 or some statistical wonky number, which is probably true. Stop doing the interviews when you're able to answer the questions before the person's answered the questions themselves. And that was around 37, 40 interviews. And then I did a few more just to make sure. And it was kind of clear at that point, I've asked every question you could possibly ask on repair and maintenance from these operator standpoints, at least for that snapshot in time. And that's how we got to how the minimum viable product was going to be of 86 repairs.
What kind of questions do you ask now?
Oh, goodness. It's going to be the basics. In the context, I'm role playing it here, but in the context, I'm talking to a restaurant operator.
I'm a restaurant operator. Go ahead.
That's right. All right. So Sean,
bring me into Thunderdome. Let's go.
So Sean, what I usually try to do is ground it in one of your locations. So what's a good location name?
Spring Valley. It's our main location, 5,700 square feet, full service restaurant.
Perfect. So Sean, all the demographic stuff is out of the way, but so Sean, you're sitting down in Spring Valley. You're looking out at your operations. You're looking at back of house. You're looking at front of house. I know we're talking about repair and maintenance here today. And if that's relevant, let's talk about it. But in general, what are the top 3 pain points that you're facing in your Spring Valley location, specifically that location? You got the whole organization to work on, but specifically what's going on in Spring Valley that's a high pain point?
I mean, currently we're onboarding our first general manager in 16 years. So my general manager has been elevated to a CFO level to manage across not just our restaurants, but our media company. And we are implementing and going through the skeletons of realizing how much tech do we have now that, we don't take for granted. We obviously do a show called Digital Hospitality to highlight our tech stack to other restaurateurs, but understanding that training is very important. And if you don't have the proper tools to train not just management level staff, but frontline staff, back of the house staff, it becomes difficult. Not only that, but when from a repair and maintenance standpoint, Eric knows the quirks of every machine because
Put his hand on the wall and feel it. He knows that the plumbing is about to go in the women's bathroom.
He's had to MacGyver it. So he has to get that institutional knowledge out of his head and into Dave's head. And I think, if you're thinking about what's the pain point for us, it's that. And I think the thing that's compelling for what 86 Repairs is building is that you're using software where most of the time we're opening up equipment. For the last 16 years, we've bought different used equipment, new equipment, but where does the warranty go? Who's responsible for it? How does it get fixed when it goes down? When Eric's not, when he's in Alaska on vacation, who's responsible for it?
Yeah. So what I hear you saying there, Sean, just to make sure I got shared understanding of what you're talking about, I hear, you didn't say these words exactly, but I had to synthesize it. I hear continuity of business and documentation of what I'm going to call tribal knowledge. And how do you keep that in place? Because you're under the paradigm of needing to grow and expand and give additional responsibility to 16-year veterans. They deserve the opportunity to take those next steps. But backfilling is a really big challenge in the industry, is what I'm hearing. And specifically for Spring Valley, that's the next challenge, is how do you grow without taking a step back in the performance and operation of that great restaurant? Is that a shared assessment?
That's a good reframe.
Yeah. So there's a little bit that's just giving you a bit of a taste, but that I'm confident enough that you would start to talk about R&M without having to nail R&M from that standpoint. And then I get a better answer because I'm getting Sean. That was a real unscripted moment where we're talking about the real realities of how do I increase the responsibility of a 16-year veteran while selecting the next person to come up, but know that there's no way they're going to be that 16-year veteran on day one or even, frankly, day 30 from that standpoint. So how do you solve that with software? How do you solve that with documentation? How do you solve that with process and great service?
Hey everyone, Avi Gorin, CEO and co-founder of Marquee, and I want to talk about the customer journey for a second. You never know as a restaurant owner where your guests are truly coming from. End of the day, we do see some patterns around two types of search behaviors: direct versus discovery. Direct search, for an example, would be jumping into Google and saying Cali barbecue hours, right? I know where I want to go to eat, but I'm missing a key detail. I need a little bit more information. Discovery, which is the bulk of searches, is barbecue in San Diego, restaurants near me, takeout near me, right? One of the best ways to be found for more discovery searches is leveraging keywords. Reviews are basically free content for you to leverage. Think about keywords that are relevant to your brand, your location, and include as many of those in your review responses as possible, right? How can you go about doing this? Let's set up reports, utilize tools like Google Trends, find out what's going on in your area and how you can help leverage these keywords and review responses, because someone else is doing that, right? If you need some examples, you could do anything from including summer menu, gluten-free menu, leverage specific menu items like the dreaded and beloved spice pumpkin anything in your review responses, right? Let them know what's coming. Let your reviewers know something they should come back and try. And of course, if all of this just seems overwhelming and daunting because you're already running a restaurant and have enough on your plate, just leverage the team at Marquee to do this for you. We handle all of this. We're experts in this space. We can automate this so it's just another item that you know you are taking care of. Again, that's marquee.com, marquii.com. No you. However, we did recently buy marquii.com. So if you do misspell it, we got you. You'll still find us. We can still help you.
The results are in. National Restaurant Association show. Kyle and Sarah and myself, we were at the Davos sales tax booth and we were polling restaurant owners on the floor. This was a very unscientific poll. but the results are resounding. Restaurant owners do not like sales tax. Nobody likes sales tax. Doesn't matter what business owner you are, small business, big business. Davo automates the sales tax process. We are so grateful that Davo is the sponsor of this show. They automate sales tax at our Cali barbecue restaurants. It is $50 a month. It integrates with all the major point of sale partners, including Toast. So if you want to sleep at night, if you want to not worry about sales tax, go to Davo, check them out, Davo Sales Tax. Let us know how they're helping automate your sales tax in your restaurant so that we can share your Davo story on digital hospitality. Can you share a story about one of your early customers when they started using 86 Repairs, kind of their aha moment when they give, that customer testimonial of a product that you and your team have created, and you kind of go, all that work, all those sticky notes, all that time, all that research, all those questions, now we can really big. Like now we can build and we can double down. We can keep building.
Yeah. I think of a 11 unit operator in the greater Detroit area, customer 2 or 3 from that standpoint. Great success in the east side of the state. Really dominated that metro for what I'm going to call kind of like the upscale casual category for full dining experience. We're not talking steak shop plays, but we're not talking fast food or limited serve. We're talking good, stable, community-led, driven, upscaled dining experiences. They had a model. They had an approach. You could walk into one of those 11 locations and, look, store 1. It's a little different than store 2, a little different than store 3. But by store 8, 9, 10, you started to see a pattern. They were starting to, I'm not going to say franchise it, and that wasn't their plan, but they really had started to figure out what made this engine cook. They then wanted to skip into Chicago. And they had started opening other locations in Chicago. Same model, built the same way, you could feel it, and they struggled. And they struggled. And one of the things that surprised them about struggling in Chicago, this is before they had 86 Repairs, was we don't have any service relationships. And anybody who knows Chicago, that's a very different service city than other cities. It's a little bit more hard scrabble, a little bit more old school. There's a little bit more loyalty and what have you to existing operators. So it's tough to be new kid on the block in the Chicagoland market, especially in the Loop or some of the more popular places downtown. And the aha moment was, oh, with 86 Repairs, I have an extension to my operation capability to expand to different metros or markets because they go before us and they sign up other customers and they understand and get a lay of the land of what the service industry looks like, the vendors, the service repair companies in the local markets. And that's an extension of my brand that, given 2-3 years, my greatest general managers from the east side of the state, I can bring them down to Chicago, but I still need them up in the east side of the state. I can't keep doing this. I can't force all these people or ask them to move to Chicago when they're Birmingham loyalists and they live there and they have their families there. So how do I get software and service and support that extends my brand beyond the single metro locations? That was a big aha moment. There's many others, but that one really showed that 86 Repairs can be instrumental in generating new revenue, not just in helping save on the margins in terms of costs and time savings.
How does 86 Repairs help solve for the skilled trade shortage in the United States?
First and foremost, not doing enough on that topic in general in the industry. And it's going to be a stubborn problem for the next 20, 30 years. I'm a pretty realist person on this topic. The trade skill issues are not going away, and they're probably going to get worse from here. I could get into a whole thing on why that is. But 86 Repairs is not fundamentally solving, which I think we need to solve as an industry, as a country, really, as a society, is how do we bring dignity back to the trade skills? How do we bring back a reputation that this is a strong way to spend your life, provide, to be somebody who has a skill that solves real problems for real people under stressful situations? And stress isn't all bad. When stress turns into success, like when you play a great game of sport and you win the game, it can be really rewarding and meaningful to do something under pressure. That problem needs to be solved by bringing some dignity back to the role, making it something that people can be proud to say I'm a plumber or to say I'm an electrician from that standpoint. But second, 86 Repairs doing its part in the industry is taking and helping two disconnected parties, restaurant operators and vendors, service technicians, and connecting them through not just the marketplace, but through actual service management. Think of it like a digital facilities manager who's helping facilitate the logistics of getting a dispatched vendor, rescheduling the ETA, making sure that there's a key holder on the operator side that can let the technician in before store open. I don't know how many tickets have been missed by vendors because they couldn't get in the back door because somebody hadn't done the logistics to say who's going to unlock the door to let Bob in to fix the fryer today.
Yeah.
All that block and tackle is inefficiency that either is left undone and causes all sorts of missed truck runs, trip charges, disputed invoices, all the pain and relational decay that happens between operators and vendors. Nobody's at fault there. Everybody's either too busy or not focused on the topic or doesn't think it's their job, or it takes too many people to keep it all involved. We fix all that defect rate through our platform because they're getting those calls, they're getting the follow-ups, they're getting the communication to all the stakeholders on the operator side to keep the conversation aligned across the organization about what we need to do to get that fryer back up and running today. That's the part that we help with, is the efficiency and streamlining and reduction of errors in the service repair management process between operators and vendors.
Can you bring me back to the platform leverage that you learned about at Home Depot?
If you're talking about leverage in the sense that at scale, Home Depot had a very large sales, furnish, and installation business.
Yeah.
An insight that I saw that could be leveraged there was, number one, and this is a negative side of it, but number one, there's a myth in the industry that the leverage you get as you get bigger is purchasing power that's going to knock down the rates of vendors. That, hey, I can buy a lot, so I'm going to ask you to do it at a discounted rate for me. That myth at the size that Home Depot was a myth. It's a story we tell. It sounds interesting. It sounds right because procurement best practices are purchasing power usually yields to lower costs. Restaurant service providers are not a commodity. They're hard-earned skills that are geographically constrained by how far a truck can drive efficiently to get work done. They don't have the purchasing power. The people buying these services don't have the purchasing power they think they have in each local market. And they can't get anybody else from any other local market to come into that local market to do that work instead, nor should they. Knowing that insight was extremely key to know that 86 Repairs needed to be the most vendor-focused, vendor-agnostic, make them jump through the least number of hoops, help them reduce dispatches that cause unwanted service visits and costs, help them make 86 Repairs the easiest platform to work with because there was no leverage that Home Depot could apply to get a better, quote unquote, a better price. That was a big part of it.
That's incredible insight, to have that experience, to try to bring that over to the restaurant. And I mean, especially from a vendor perspective, because typically most brands are trying to leverage vendors on their platform to make money off of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no comment other than yes.
No comment. Other than that's absolutely not our recipe.
That's not how we're gonna play this game. Hell no. No.
What's the difference between predictive maintenance and on-demand repair management?
Yeah, the original ideas of 86 Repairs were around predictive maintenance. And I think that world is coming sooner rather than later. And I'm pretty excited about what I see coming up in the industry on the topic. But predictive maintenance, how we think about it is whether it's Internet of Things or large data analysis and trends, this can be low tech. I don't think it needs to be magic. I'm avoiding the words like AI because I have my own opinions on that. It'll be another yes topic. But you can do it with really simple things. It's the Southwest. It's June, July, August. We can predict HVAC is going to be a problem category for those summer months.
Yep.
It can get more sophisticated with predictive maintenance being, I think the next level of predictive maintenance is preventative maintenance as a best in class practice, detecting issues before they've become critical uptime issues. You can see a heat exchanger is working really hard. That compressor is working really hard because the heat exchanger is clogged. You clean it, you get the preventative maintenance work, but you know that that compressor has taken an undue load. You can start to have an educated conversation with the operators that are sophisticated enough and analytical enough to make a cost benefit analysis of whether we should proactively repair, proactively replace, predict that issue. And I think the thing that's coming, but still isn't quite here, that I'm really excited about is the true Internet of Things. We get actual signal data back from equipment that states and shows the trend line of the compressor turning on and off is going exponential, and that we're near a critical failure of that unit. That's where I think things are going. I think there's a couple domino pieces that need to fall into place before that becomes a reality, but I'm pretty excited about that potential. Reactive repair is 97% of the industry today. And that is nothing more than I walk into the kitchen at the open of shift. I try to fire up my fryers. I give them their time to get to temperature. And for some reason they don't. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do now?
Yep.
I need to call somebody. I need to get Bob, the hot side guy, in to take a look at the fryer to get it reactively repaired. And it's the most expensive type of repair. Unfortunately, it's the vast super majority of repairs that happen in the industry.
Do you have a crazy repair story?
Oh, man. So many crazy repairs.
Which one comes to mind?
Yeah, I think a funny one. Different operator on the east side of the state in Michigan than the previous story, but a real operator that had a flair for just baller decor, ambiance, environment. Just built these, I'll say it positively, these gangster locations. Like you felt like you were Al Capone going into some of these places, and he had built this flagship location in a very prominent area of Detroit, and it has a three seasons room on the side of this pretty historically important building. And this three seasons room had a telescoping roof. So imagine a third of your restaurant seats are outside in this three seasons, massive thing. And it opens like this.
Wow.
Do you think that a three seasons room in a rainy Midwestern town would ever have any issues?
It sounds like more of a San Diego venue. San Diego would work pretty well.
They were customer number 2. I remember that one vividly. And I would do whatever it took for those first customers. So I did a lot of repairs in the beginning days. But
really,
imagine that that three seasons room, and they're looking to get it weatherized in the fall, and it's a custom build. I went through the process of researching all the foam and rubber durometer needs to custom cut out templates to weatherize. Essentially, I'm going to make up a number, hundreds of joints and creases and openings in this three seasons that could open up. And for an entire weekend, I spent the time going through and weatherizing each panel in space with these custom cutout foam panels. And I'm not sure it was a successful repair. It got them probably through a season from that standpoint, but that was one of the wilder ones I ever took care of.
So you shared with me when this Walmart's vendor score system, back when you were working with the bagel slicers, and where
Mhm.
kind of this aha moment of understanding, like, this is how Walmart does it. Maybe there's something better. Does 86 Repair have a vendor scorecard?
We do have a vendor scorecard, and it's going to be the normal and industry standard measurements of things like first time fix rate and total cost of repair, and things like, are they great communicators in the process? Do they give us visibility to their site visit and what they performed, and do they give detailed notes back? Things of that sort. All the normal stuff that you'd see there
Uh,
from a scorecard standpoint.
I would love to hear your perspective on the tools that vendors are using for their digital hospitality. I'll give you an
Yeah,
example.
give me an
So
example.
our HVAC unit at our Spring Valley location decided that in the 100-degree temperature in San Diego, which is rare for us, decided to stop working week one of the NFL season. And um, obviously it's on a Sunday, so my general manager started making calls to our regular companies that we use. Nobody picked up the phone. He got another number from a friend of a friend, and their digital hospitality was phenomenal because the phone went to a text message, sent him a direct text message response, let him know that he was in the queue. He started a text exchange, and that was the first vendor that came out. Now, these are basic things that we believe deeply in, that are across all industries, not just the restaurant industry. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if I'm talking about signing up my son for Little League or going to the local school to do a fundraiser. Like, digital hospitality is everywhere. And from a product standpoint and from a communication standpoint, there are basic low entry things that vendors can do and restaurants can do to make their lives easier. I mean, we have the technology. It's just understanding, well, what is the tool to make this communication better? Like, does it
Yeah.
have to be this way? Can you share a little bit about this crazy
This
thesis? I mean,
topic.
this is literally the heart of the show of why we believe that not only is this niched in the, restaurant hospitality space, but this is a global thing we're all going through. We're all understanding, like, when you go and you book a plane flight, some airlines do a much better job than other airlines. Some hotels do a better job. Some air conditioning companies do a great job.
Do a
Most of
great
them, I'm
job.
guessing, probably don't do it.
I'm laughing because it's I'll put it politely, it's a wide spectrum on this topic. Everything from no digital or
Yes.
no customer service functionality in place to some pretty I'll say for this industry, pretty sophisticated
Yes.
communications protocols. I think the thing that has always grounded me, and I think what makes us different in the industry, is we've always had this operator vendor grounded experience, as opposed to really trying to sell the quote unquote the future. And maybe that's hurt our top line
Yeah.
growth and telling a great story, but we've always been grounded in how our operators and how our vendors actually working, as opposed to how could it be. We go
Correct.
to how could it be, and that's what I think we're in the business of doing, but we ground it. And the stat I always go back to, and it's a little dated at this point, and it certainly has changed, but starting in 2018, the research that we looked at, 30% of third-party service technicians, these are the people that are actually turning the wrench, 30% of them in 2018 did not have a smartphone at the time.
Wow.
To have 1 in 3, it doesn't really matter if 2 out of 3 have it, because you're going to call Sean, your team's going to call that HVAC person once a quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
If out of 1 in 3 times you don't have somebody that can communicate
Wow.
or use technology, it needs to be 95, 97, 99% of people have some of this technology in place before you get the experience you're looking for and feeling
Wow.
in the
That is a
industry.
shocking statistic.
Yeah, and that grounded me. I was surprised by it. It didn't jump off the page. It wasn't something I was assuming or even looking for when I found it. But that was a really big problem. Now, lots changed in the last 6 years. COVID really put a lot of digital transformation out there.
Yeah.
And so what I see as kind of where we're going is full integration with the ticket management systems of the vendor, with a ticket management system like 86 Repairs on the operator side.
Mm-hmm.
the double entry data issues that are being caused in the industry by competitors or other options in the industry are hurting the problem, not helping the problem, and making it worse. Vendors are choosing not to play with ticketing systems on the operator side because the market incentives are perverted and because they're being asked to double enter information into two systems. But that doesn't mean that vendors don't want a great customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so busy turning the wrench on the truck. The difference between break even and insolvency on a day-to-day basis is whether or not a service technician gets at least 4 truck runs done a day. And if there's 45 minutes between a truck run and it takes you at least an hour and a half to 2 hours per job to do the work and do all the documentation, you're at an 8-hour day before you're even done with the 4. You really got to run a 10-hour shift and sometimes a 12-hour shift to get to 5. And that's the difference between break even and insolvency. They don't have the time for all of this. So think of anything that you get on an Amazon order or a UPS tracking shipment.
Yeah.
Anything like that, that's where we should be. And that's where we should be heading. You have a Domino's pizza tracker.
Yeah.
This is where your service visit's at, and this is how we're at in the status, and et cetera, et cetera. And then there may be a few other things that we add in there because pizza delivery, this may sound dismissive, is easier than fixing a fryer or an oven. So there's more complicated defects and problems that happen along the way as the pizza comes across town. And so there's some places where we need to insert additional steps, but the metaphor holds. If you as an operator have all the stakeholders able to look at the status of a ticket like a UPS tracking or a pizza delivery app, that would be probably enough to make everybody feel like they're getting their service needs met, so long as the thing gets repaired at a reasonable cost and the cleanup is done and they exit the restaurant and they're polite with staff. Those are the basics. And I think that would be a huge win if we got to that point.
Are you telling me, Joe, that there is a future where technicians will not provide a 4 to 6 hour window of when they will show up for home repair or business repair? Is that is that is that the world that you're envisioning?
No, I think that would be great if they could at least communicate that they will be there in 4 to 6 hours.
So we got more steps to take before
we have to solve the trade skill supply issues on that side of things. That's gonna change that window. But until that's solved, I think it would be great if having ETAs established is a really important step. We have a differentiator in our ETA establishment metrics for vendors between ETA as soon as possible and ETA defined. And that may sound like a really semantic and small thing, but the difference between as soon as possible and even a 4 to 6 hour window is worth double-digit percentages in first-time fix rate and actual double-digit percentages of likelihood that the vendor shows up at the appointment. It's a huge problem in the industry because there's just not enough service technicians in the industry in general. So that's another way that we really do help is we really know those small little details about how the block and tackle actually works for the operator and for the vendor so that we can do the escalations and get that vendor to help define an ETA that's going to meet their needs or move on to another vendor in their roster for the customer's benefit if and only if the customer and vendor mutually agree that this is the right time to move on to a different vendor.
Who is your North Star of product when you look at other brands across any industry of something where you go, I want to keep building towards this type of experience, this type of user experience?
Yeah. It's going to sound nuts, and I kind of tipped my hand already, and it's very unrelated to this industry, but I continue to look at least the time period that was when it was up and coming was MailChimp. The insane, maniacal emphasis on understanding the niche needs of an email marketer when email marketing was the predominant up and coming marketing channel.
Yeah.
To look at understanding what I'm going to make up their name. When Paula, the internal email marketer, is sitting at their desk and they're working out, jamming out 5,000 emails out to their clients, customers, to do everything between transactional emails and everything else in between. These aren't things that a smart academic is going to be able to deduce how to build a great product for them. They're going to need to sit down with Paula.
Yeah.
And they're going to need to sit down with Paula regularly. And they're going to sit down with hundreds of Paulas. And they're going to need to ask them the same questions they've been asking for years, again and again and again, and it doesn't stop. You don't stop interviewing your customers. You don't stop talking to operators. One, because your assumptions start to drift, and two, because the industry trends start to shift. COVID changed our industry dramatically. Knowing that people are finally starting to solve their restaurant staffing issues with equipment solutions. Those types of changes that are happening in industry, you wouldn't get them if you weren't constantly asking your customers, what are the pain points that you're facing? And when I look at MailChimp, it's irrelevant what features they built and what the software was and why it's email marketing. It's the methodology, it's the approach, it's the cultural values of being customer obsessed and customer focused and operator obsessed and operator focused. We have to serve two masters. We've got to make sure we understand our customers. We also need to understand our vendors. The third is we have to understand our internal staff at 86 Repairs, because they're the primary users of our software, because we're a tech-enabled service. We're proud of the team that we've built around that, because there's people actually managing this process on behalf of operators, not just a software solution. But as long as we constantly are asking those three parties, those three personas, those three stakeholders, what are their pain points, and keep solving them, I'm confident that we'll continue to build towards a long-term valuable impact on the industry of repair and maintenance in the restaurant industry.
Is there anything that I should have asked you about 86 Repairs that you would love our audience of operators, marketers, sales professionals to know?
I think about customer feedback, kind of tying into those interviews and customer feedback, and just telling a quick story on it. If we're going to be talking about what are some of the things we've actually implemented that people are asking for, talking about, from that standpoint, something that we knew from the very beginning, but it was an abstract, kind of over the hill idea, is that we're going to manage all these repairs. We're going to focus on that. And we're going to try to do our damnedest to do a good job managing service and repair. And then we trusted that over time, that insights and data and unvarnished, I'm going to call it consumer reports review type level information that's not biased by who's spiffing you the most in the dealer channel or doing all this other stuff that happens to say you should buy this versus that, but giving unvarnished data that operators, and sometimes admittedly some of the larger, more sophisticated operators that have kind of graduated in their operational best practices, that they would really value that data. And what I'm seeing now in very tactical and we're really excited about is we have the data on hundreds of thousands of repairs now across thousands of locations, across hundreds of metros in the United States, North America. What is so compelling to me is now that we have that data set, we've started to build repair versus replace reports and total cost of ownership reports and some other really, really interesting data. And when we put that in front of CFOs, financial stakeholders, directors of operations across our customer base, you can feel the hair go back up on the back of their neck. They go, oh, all those repairs that I was getting block and tackled ad hoc across my locations was a treasure trove of great data and insight on how I could make better capital planning, get better OpEx planning for next year, how I should think about my store refreshes, how I should think about my next store opening and whether I should buy this ice machine versus that ice machine. Should I lease my ice machines? Should I buy my ice machines? Making those decisions, there's nobody in the room for the operator that's giving them unvarnished advice on this topic, because everybody wants to put, I'm being a little cynical here, everybody wants to put their hand in that cookie jar. There's a lot of money at stake here. Well, we want to make money selling a service that helps the repair and maintenance process, and then give back the insights to the industry on how you should make better purchasing decisions and procurement decisions to help your operations be more effective and efficient in the future.
That's incredible. Anybody that's listening to this show, we want you, the viewer, the listener, to join us on LinkedIn. We do a live show every Wednesday, every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. London time, wherever you are in the world. That's a chance for you to come on stage and talk about your restaurant, talk about your technology. If you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're a content creator, it's a digital hospitality community that we've been building for the last 3 years. We would love for you to join us. You can follow Cali BBQ Media on LinkedIn and get links to the room. Joe, what's the best place for people to connect with you personally and to find out more about 86 Repairs? Where can they go?
Yeah, I'm a very open book person. I think about this topic all the time. Very open to communication, and maybe to my own fault. But anybody can reach me at joe@86repairs.com. That's my email address. I have lots of filters and things to protect me from that standpoint, but I love hearing from operators. I love hearing from industry stakeholders. Feel free to reach out anytime. So that's Joe, Joe, at the number 8, the number 6, repairs, plural.com.
Amazing. We'll put links into the bio. We appreciate you guys for listening. As always, stay curious, get involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We'll catch you guys next week.